What if the eggs, the oatmeal, even that healthy bowl of cereal you've been eating for breakfast were never really the problem? For years, we've all been told the same thing. Watch what you eat first thing in the morning, and your blood sugar will follow. So we cut the sugar. We skip the pastry. We swap in the whole grains. And still, for so many people over 60, the numbers barely budge. Here's why. Researchers using continuous glucose monitors, tiny sensors that track blood sugar minute by minute, have discovered something that flips this advice on its head. The biggest factor in how high your blood sugar climbs after breakfast often isn't the breakfast at all. It's something else entirely, something that happens in the 15 quiet minutes before you ever pick up a fork. And once you see it, you'll never look at your morning routine the same way again. Quick question before we go further. Have you ever noticed your blood sugar or your energy feels worse in the morning than it does after lunch or dinner, even when you eat something similar? Keep that in the back of your mind, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that happens. Here's the piece almost nobody explains clearly. Your body is not equally good at handling carbohydrates at every hour of the day. Overnight, while you sleep, your liver quietly releases stored glucose to keep your brain and organs fueled. At the same time, hormones like cortisol rise naturally in the early morning to help you wake up. Both of these normal processes make your body more resistant to insulin first thing in the morning than it is later in the day. Doctors sometimes call this the dawn phenomenon. It means that the exact same bowl of oatmeal that barely moves your blood sugar at 2 in the afternoon can send it climbing much higher at 7 in the morning. So when we obsess only over which breakfast foods to choose, we're missing the part of the equation that's working against us before we've even picked up a fork. And this isn't just a theory sitting in a textbook somewhere. Researchers have watched the exact same person eat the exact same meal at 7 in the morning and again at 1 in the afternoon, and seen a clearly higher, sharper spike after the morning version, every single time. Nothing about the food changed. Only the clock did. So if breakfast itself isn't the whole story, what is? The research points to something almost too simple to believe. What you put into your body in the 15 to 30 minutes before you eat your main meal can change how sharply your blood sugar rises afterwards, sometimes dramatically. Scientists call this a preload. It's not about eating less. It's about eating something small and specific, slightly ahead of time, so your body is already prepared before the bigger meal arrives. Now, you might be thinking, does a blood sugar spike after breakfast really matter that much? It does, and here's why. Every time your blood sugar shoots up and then crashes back down, it puts stress on your blood vessels, your pancreas, and your energy levels. Do that morning after morning, year after year, and it becomes one of the quiet drivers behind insulin resistance, weight gain around the middle, fatty liver, and eventually type 2 diabetes. It's also linked to a higher long-term risk of heart disease. And some researchers believe repeated glucose spikes may even play a role in cognitive decline. This isn't about vanity or a number on a scale. This is about your heart, your brain, and how many good, energetic years you get to enjoy. And there's a second, more immediate reason to care. One that has nothing to do with long-term disease risk. Big blood sugar swings are exhausting. That familiar wave of tiredness that hits an hour or two after breakfast. The sudden hunger that shows up right before lunch even though you just ate. The fog that makes it hard to focus on your morning tasks. These are often direct symptoms of a glucose spike, followed by a crash. Flattening that curve doesn't just protect your future health. It can change how you feel today. So today, I'm going to walk you through 3 simple, science-backed things you can do before breakfast that have been shown, in real studies, to blunt that morning blood sugar spike. Then I'll give you one bonus multiplier that stacks on top of all 3 and can extend the benefit through the rest of your day. Do this consistently, and you may start noticing steadier energy, fewer mid-morning crashes, and calmer blood sugar numbers within just a couple of weeks. Before we dive in, I want to be upfront about something. I'm not a doctor, and nothing in this video should replace medical advice from your own physician, especially if you take insulin or any blood sugar medication. What I am is someone who has spent a long time digging through the actual research on nutrition and metabolic health and translating it into simple, doable steps for people who don't have time to read medical journals. My only goal with this channel is to hand you real, honest information you can actually use. All right, let's get into it. There are 3 pre-breakfast strategies we're going to cover, and each one works through a slightly different mechanism in your body. The first is about protein. The second is about a common kitchen ingredient you probably already have. And the third is about a type of fiber most people completely overlook. Let's start with the first one. Mechanism 1. The protein preload. The first strategy is a small protein preload. Here's the biology behind it. When protein hits your stomach and small intestine, it triggers the release of a hormone called GLP-1, along with an early rise in insulin. Think of it like sending a text message ahead of a big group arriving at a restaurant. The kitchen gets a head start before the rush hits. That early insulin response means that by the time the carbohydrates from your actual breakfast arrive, your body is already partway prepared to handle them, instead of being caught off guard. The simplest way to use this is to have a small amount of protein about 15 to 30 minutes before you eat your main breakfast. That could be a hard-boiled egg you keep ready in the fridge, a small serving of plain Greek yogurt, or a few spoonfuls of cottage cheese. If you prefer something you can just drink, a small, unsweetened whey protein shake works especially well because whey protein appears to trigger this early insulin response faster than other protein sources. And the research backs this up with real numbers. In controlled studies on people with type 2 diabetes, drinking a whey protein preload before a meal reduced the blood sugar spike afterward by around 17 to 20% compared to drinking water. In one study, adding this kind of preload before breakfast and again before lunch and dinner didn't just help after each individual meal, it lowered how much people's blood sugar swung up and down across the entire day. One common objection I hear at this point is, isn't eating something before breakfast just a second breakfast? Not really. And here's the distinction. We're talking about a genuinely small amount, 1 egg, a few spoonfuls of yogurt, or a small shake, not a full plate of food. The goal isn't extra calories, it's timing. You're simply moving a small portion of what you might already eat earlier by 15 or 30 minutes. So your body gets that head start before the rest of the meal arrives. If you try this one, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Even something as small as noticing you feel less hungry an hour after breakfast counts as a win worth sharing. Mechanism 2. Vinegar before eating. The second strategy involves something that's probably already sitting in your pantry. Vinegar. Specifically, apple cider vinegar. The mechanism here is different from protein. Vinegar contains acetic acid, and researchers believe it works partly by slowing down how quickly your stomach empties its contents into your small intestine, and partly by interfering with certain enzymes that break carbohydrates down into sugar. The result is a slower, gentler release of glucose into your bloodstream, rather than a sharp spike. Here's how to actually use it. Mix about 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar into a large glass of water, and drink it around 15 minutes before you eat. It's strong on its own, so diluting it isn't optional, it's necessary, both for your taste buds and for the enamel on your teeth. Some people prefer sipping it through a straw for that reason. If straight vinegar water isn't appealing to you, a simple vinaigrette-style salad with a vinegar-based dressing eaten just before your meal, or a small side of pickled vegetables, can offer a similar effect. In a study comparing this approach in older adults, drinking vinegar before a high-carbohydrate meal measurably reduced the blood sugar rise that followed. And interestingly, the researchers found it worked about as well as taking a short walk after eating, which we'll come back to in a moment. One important safety note: if you have acid reflux, a history of stomach ulcers, or you're on certain medications, check with your doctor before adding vinegar to your routine, since it is acidic and can interact with some conditions and medications. When you're shopping for it, Look for apple cider vinegar labeled with the mother. That cloudy sediment you sometimes see floating in the bottle is simply a natural byproduct of fermentation, and it's the traditional, minimally processed version most of the research has used. It's inexpensive, shelf-stable for years, and a single bottle will likely last you months. So this is one of the lowest cost strategies on this entire list. Mechanism 3. The fiber and healthy fat barrier. The third strategy is what I like to call building a gastric break using fiber and healthy fat. Here's the biology. Certain fibers, especially the soluble kind found in foods like chia seeds, ground flaxseed, and nuts, absorb water and form a kind of gel in your stomach. That gel physically slows down digestion, which means the carbohydrates you eat afterward are released into your bloodstream more gradually instead of all at once. Healthy fats work in a related way. They slow gastric emptying too, so your stomach hands off its contents to your intestines at a more leisurely pace. My hero recommendation here is chia seeds, because they're inexpensive, require no cooking, and are easy to find at almost any grocery store. About 15 to 20 minutes before breakfast, stir 1 to 2 tablespoons of chia seeds into a small glass of water and let them sit until they turn gel-like, then drink it down. If chia isn't for you, a small handful of walnuts or almonds, or even a spoonful of ground flaxseed stirred into water, works through a similar pathway. Older research on healthy fats specifically found that meals paired with a source of fat ahead of time showed a slower, more controlled release of sugar into the bloodstream, helping to prevent the sharp spikes that come from eating carbohydrates on an empty stomach. If you'd rather skip the water and gel approach entirely, you can get a similar benefit by simply eating a small handful of raw or lightly salted nuts or half an avocado in the 15 minutes before your main meal. The exact vehicle matters less than the principle. A bit of fiber or healthy fat, slightly ahead of your carbohydrates, acts like a cushion that softens the impact. The takeaway across all three of these strategies, protein, vinegar, and fiber fat, is the same. Give your digestive system a small head start, and it handles the main event far more gracefully. Now, those three strategies are the core of what you eat or drink before breakfast. But there's one more piece that multiplies the effect of everything we just covered, and it doesn't involve eating anything at all. The multiplier is food order and light movement. Research on meal sequencing has found that when people eat protein or fiber-rich foods before the carbohydrate portion of their meal, rather than mixing everything together or eating carbs first, their after-meal blood sugar rises less sharply. In one study, participants who drank a protein shake 30 minutes before a carbohydrate-heavy meal had a noticeably better blood sugar response than those who drank the same shake alongside. The meal timing mattered almost as much as the protein itself. On top of that, a short walk after breakfast, even just 10 to 15 minutes, has been shown in multiple studies to reduce the size of the blood sugar spike that follows a meal, sometimes by a meaningful margin. In the same study we mentioned with the vinegar, a short post-meal walk performed about as well as the vinegar did on its own, and combining strategies tends to help even more than using just one. So the full multiplier looks like this. Preload 15 to 30 minutes before eating. Eat your protein and vegetables before your carbohydrates within the meal itself, and take a short walk afterward if you're able to. If a walk isn't realistic for you some mornings, maybe because of joint pain, weather, or simply time, even standing up and doing light household tasks like tidying the kitchen or watering plants for 10 minutes appears to help more than sitting still does. The goal isn't intense exercise. It's simply avoiding being completely sedentary in that window right after eating, when your blood sugar is naturally climbing toward its peak. Let's make this ridiculously simple, because I know mornings are busy and nobody wants a complicated ritual. Here's a routine you could realistically follow most days. When you wake up, have a glass of water. About 15 to 20 minutes before you plan to eat, choose one of the three preloads, a small serving of protein, diluted vinegar water, or a chia seed drink. You don't need to do all three every single day. Even doing one consistently is a meaningful step. Then eat your normal breakfast, trying to eat any vegetables or protein on your plate before the toast, cereal, or fruit. If your schedule allows it, take a gentle 10-minute walk sometime in the 30 minutes after you finish eating, even if it's just around the house or up and down your driveway. A quick safety note for anyone managing diabetes with medication, particularly insulin or sulfonylureas. Adding preloads and changing your eating pattern can affect your blood sugar readings, so it's worth checking your levels a little more closely as you introduce these habits, and looping in your doctor, especially if you notice your numbers running lower than usual. This is about giving your body support, not about self-adjusting medication on your own. To put it all together, here's what a realistic morning might look like. 6:45. Wake up. Drink a glass of water. 7 o'clock. Mix 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar into a full glass of water and drink it. Or have a hard-boiled egg if you prefer the protein route. 7:20. Eat breakfast, starting with any eggs or vegetables on your plate before the toast or fruit. 7:40. Take a 10-minute walk, even a short one around the block or in your backyard. That's the entire routine. Nothing about it requires special equipment, a big time investment, or a complicated shopping list. Out of the 3 preload options we covered today, protein, vinegar, or the chia and fiber approach, which one do you think you'll try first? Let me know in the comments, because I read every one of them, and it genuinely helps me know what to cover next. If this is the kind of practical, research-backed health information you find useful, consider subscribing. I put out videos like this regularly, breaking down real studies into steps you can actually use in your everyday life. And I'd love to have you along for the next one. And if you think this video could help someone you care about, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who's mentioned struggling with their morning numbers, tapping the like button is honestly the simplest way to help this information reach them too. So let's come back to where we started. It's easy to assume that blood sugar control begins and ends with what's on your breakfast plate. But as we've seen today, what happens in the 15 or 20 minutes before that plate even arrives can matter just as much, if not more. A small amount of protein, a splash of diluted vinegar, or a spoonful of chia seeds paired with eating your carbohydrates last and moving a little afterward gives your body a head start instead of catching it off guard. In fact, one of the clearest findings across this research is that people who consistently used even one of these small preload habits saw steadier blood sugar not just right after breakfast, but for the rest of the day. Small, consistent actions, repeated daily, tend to outperform occasional big efforts, and this is a perfect example of that principle in action. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Try one small change tomorrow morning and see how you feel. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.